I used to believe reality had weight. Not in a poetic sense, I mean actual weight. Bolts had torque values. Oxygen moved through ducts at measurable pressure. Condensation collected where temperature gradients said it should. If a pump made a bad sound, there is a bearing somewhere getting ready to fail. If a panel bowed, something behind it was expanding, contracting, leaking, or pulling against the frame. Nothing happened for no reason. That was the whole foundation of my life. Then I spent 6 months aboard the Halcyon space station, and I learned there are places where reason still works perfectly, right up until the moment it doesn't. I have photographs from that mission that show rooms I never entered. I have maintenance logs in my handwriting for equipment I do not remember touching. I have an inventory report listing 7 crew members on a station that launched with 6. And I have one file printed on actual paper because I stopped trusting screens that contains the name Damian Ruiz. I never met Damian Ruiz. No one did, at least not at first. Halcyon looked nothing like people imagine when they think of a space station. It wasn't all gray metal and cramped tunnels and Velcro bags floating around like laundry in a dryer. The company had spent an obscene amount of money making it feel calm. White composite panels, soft indirect lighting, wood-colored laminate around the galley table, private sleep cabins just large enough to trick your body into believing it still had a bedroom. There were even little strips of artificial greenery mounted near the exercise wall, because some behavioral consultant had decided the human brain needed leaves. They were fake, obviously. Everything up there was fake in a way that still worked. The official mission was pharmaceutical manufacturing, protein crystal growth, microgravity bioreactors, precision compounds that would supposedly change medicine on Earth. The company made beautiful videos about it. Slow shots of the station crossing over blue ocean. Children leaving hospitals holding their parents' hands. Executives in shirt sleeves saying words like hope and access and frontier. I had seen enough corporate mission videos by then to know that the cleaner the language, the more expensive the lawyers. Still, the job was good. Better than good. I had done Air Force maintenance when I was younger, then moved into commercial orbital systems after the private company started hiring anyone who could keep machinery alive without panicking. Halcyon paid hazard bonuses that made my eyes hurt the first time I saw the contract. I told myself I was going for the money. That wasn't entirely true. There's a particular kind of person who likes maintenance. We do not need applause. We do not need to be the smartest person in the room. We like systems that admit when they're broken. A stuck valve doesn't lie to your face. A failing scrubber doesn't tell you to focus on the bigger picture. You find the problem, you document it, you fix it, and the system either improves or it doesn't. Halcyon gave me the most elegant systems I had ever worked on. For the first few weeks, I loved it. Commander Evelyn Shaw ran the station with the calm authority of someone who had learned a long time ago that panic wastes oxygen. She had this habit of listening completely before she spoke, which made people confess more than they meant to. Dr. Maya Patel was our flight surgeon and neuroscientist. She was small, sharp-eyed, and somehow always looked freshly awake. which I resented on a biological level. She checked our sleep, our blood, our reflexes, our moods. She could ask, "How are you feeling?" in a way that made you answer honestly by accident. Lucas Kim handled biochemistry and believed in the mission with a sincerity I never had the heart to mock. He talked about protein folding, the way other men talk about baseball. Owen Brooks was the material scientist, older than the rest of us, quiet, patient, and very good at making coffee out of powder that tasted like regret. Every evening he photographed Earth through the observation glass. Same ritual, same soft smile, like he was checking on someone sleeping. And Sofia Alvarez was communications and software. Sophia became my closest friend up there because she was the only person on the station who understood that machines develop personalities and that most of those personalities are petty. "Your CO2 sensor is being passive-aggressive again," she'd say. "It's not passive-aggressive," I'd tell her. "It's Italian." "Why Italian?" "Because it keeps throwing alarms with its hands." She laughed at that for 3 days, which is a long time in orbit. The first anomaly was nothing. That's how these things start, I think. Not with a scream, not with alarms, with something so small you feel embarrassed writing it down. I was doing routine ventilation checks in the forward lab module. The airflow in Lab 2 had been reading slightly low, not enough to trigger concern, but enough to annoy me. I pulled the filter housing, cleaned a thin gray fuzz off the mesh, reseated the panel, photographed the repair, and logged it offline on my private drive. I kept my own backups, always had. Corporate servers are useful until someone decides the record would look better without your complaint in it. The next morning, a maintenance request appeared in the station queue. "Airflow imbalance, Lab 3 auxiliary corridor." We did not have a Lab 3. We had Lab 1 and Lab 2. Then a storage node. Then the galley hub. I knew the layout better than I knew some apartments I had lived in. I assumed it was a groundside template error. I messaged flight. Helen Ross responded after a delay, voice smooth and untroubled through the comm loop. "Daniel, we're showing that request as valid. Please verify locally when convenient." Helen was like that, calm to the point of cruelty. She never sounded worried. I sometimes wondered if she had a second voice she used for house fires and shark attacks. I floated at the junction outside Lab 2, tablet in one hand, and stared at the wall where this alleged auxiliary corridor was supposed to be. White paneling, equipment rack, fire extinguisher, Velcro strip holding a pouch of sampling swabs. No corridor. I took a photo. Then I closed the request as unable to reproduce. An hour later, it reopened. Sophia was in the comm bay when I came through, one knee hooked under a restraint, her hair tied back badly. "Tell me something," I said. "Do we have a Lab 3? She looked up. "Emotionally or architecturally?" "Architecturally." "No." "Thank you." Emotionally, Lucas thinks every room is Lab 3 if he leaves enough samples in it. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next few days, small errors appeared in systems that did not talk to each other. Inventory listed an extra carbon pre-filter. The emergency oxygen mask count went from 12 to 13, then back to 12 after I physically counted them and updated the manifest. A water recycling diagnostic referenced a gray water bypass valve I had never seen. The valve number fit our naming convention perfectly. Too perfectly. Like someone had studied our system and invented a component that belonged. Every time there was a reasonable explanation. Bad sync from ground, corrupted index, legacy template, human error. Maintenance is mostly the art of not becoming mystical when a connector is loose. Then Maya mentioned Damien. We were strapped around the galley table eating dinner from pouches and pretending texture was optional. Owen had managed to make coffee slightly less offensive. Lucas was explaining that certain crystal formations were almost emotionally beautiful, which told me he had been in orbit too long. Maya reached behind her for a storage sleeve and said casually, "Damien wanted more coffee packets, by the way." No one reacted. Not Evelyn, not Owen, not Lucas, not Sophia. I waited because sometimes conversations have a missing piece that arrives late. It didn't. "Who?" I said. Maya looked at me. "Damien." I smiled because I thought it was a joke. "Do we have one of those?" Sophia snorted. "Barely." Maya shook the coffee packet at me. "You know." "Damien?" I looked around the table. Evelyn was watching me with mild curiosity. Lucas was squeezing sauce onto something that did not deserve sauce. Owen was rubbing his thumb along the rim of his drink bulb. "Right," I said. "That Damien." It was easier to let it pass. In close quarters, you learn not to make every odd remark into a meeting. People develop jokes you miss. They call equipment by names. They invent imaginary co-workers to blame for messes. In the Air Force, we had a fictional airman named Perkins who lost every tool, stripped every screw, and drank the last coffee. Perkins had a whole career without ever existing. So I assumed Damien was Halcyon's Perkins. A station joke. The next morning I found a wrench labeled D. Ruiz in the tool locker. It was a standard adjustable, part of Kit B, with a strip of white tape on the handle. The lettering was blocky and neat. Not mine, not Sophia's. I checked the tool inventory. There it was. Adjustable wrench Kit B, assigned Ruiz D. I opened the previous offline inventory from my private drive. The wrench was there too. Assigned General Maintenance. I sat in the equipment bay for a while, holding the wrench against my thigh so it wouldn't drift, and looked between the two files. The online manifest said Ruiz. My offline copy said General Maintenance. Same file name, same revision number, same timestamp from before launch. Different contents. That was the first time I felt something in me step carefully backward. Not fear, not yet. Just the old maintenance instinct that says a measurement has contradicted the world. I photographed the wrench. Then I photographed the screen. Then I wrote a private note using plain text. No sync, no station network. D. Ruiz appears in Tool Manifest. No crew memory on my part. Others reference casually. I did not tell anyone. That may sound strange, but you have to understand the culture of orbital work. You do not casually announce cognitive concerns on a private space station. Not when mission control monitors everything. Not when your medical clearance determines whether you keep earning hazard pay. Not when a flight surgeon sits 3 seats away and can ground your career with one careful phrase. I trusted Maya. I didn't trust the system around her. The station continued to be beautiful. That bothered me later when I tried to explain it. Nothing looked wrong. The walls stayed clean, the fans hummed. Earth kept rolling underneath us in impossible color. Our meals were bad in familiar ways. The treadmill squeaked. Lucas sang under his breath in the lab until Sophia threatened to corrupt his playlists, and Damien remained just outside the edge of direct experience. Damien already checked the condenser. Ask Damien where he put the spare tablet mounts. Damien's going to complain if you use all the hot sauce. No one spoke to him. No one called down a corridor. No one passed him a pouch. No one laughed at something he said. He existed only in reference, like a room on the other side of a wall. I started watching for him without admitting I was watching. There were 6 sleep cabins in the crew ring. Evelyn, Maya, Lucas, Sophia, Owen, me. One evening after a CO2 scrubber inspection, I counted 7. I did it 3 times. The new cabin was between mine and Sophia's, which was impossible, in the dullest, most physical way. Station modules are not houses. You don't wake up with an extra bedroom because someone renovated quietly. The crew ring was a cylinder with fixed compartments mounted around a central passage. Every hatch had wiring, ducts, data lines, structural connections. Adding a cabin would require launch mass, installation time, pressure testing, certification, and paperwork so thick you could stop a bullet with it. The new hatch was labeled Ruiz. White letters, clean plate, same style as the rest. I took a picture. Then I went to my offline photos from our first week aboard. Crew ring, general inspection. The wall between my cabin and Sophia's showed a storage panel, not a hatch. I stared at that picture so long, my eyes started inventing motion. Then the photo changed. I don't mean I blinked and remembered it differently. I mean the image on my tablet refreshed, pixel by pixel, like a low bandwidth download resolving. The storage panel softened. Edges shifted. The label appeared. Ruiz. I slapped the tablet against my chest and held it there, breathing too hard. When I looked again, the photo had always shown a hatch. My offline archive had changed. That was when I told Maya. She listened without interrupting. We were in the medical bay, privacy curtain drawn, her tablet dark in her lap. I showed her the wrench, the logs, the cabin. I told her about the maintenance request for Lab 3. She did not dismiss me. I will always be grateful for that. Do you think I'm having a neurological event? I asked. I think, she said carefully. that you're reporting a pattern of perceived inconsistencies under prolonged isolation, workload stress, and altered circadian cues. That is a very expensive way to say yes. It's a very precise way to say maybe. She ran tests, reflexes, eye tracking, memory sequences, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, cognitive screening. I passed everything. "You're not impaired," she said. "Good. That doesn't mean your interpretation is correct." "Less good." She almost smiled. Then she said something I have replayed many times. "Daniel, if you were developing a fixed delusion, I would expect the evidence to organize around your fear. This is stranger than that. You're not telling me the station is haunted. You're telling me the documentation is inconsistent. Documentation can be checked." "Yes," she said. "That's why it worries me." We agreed to keep it between us while she reviewed medical telemetry and I continued logging. It felt reasonable, adult, professional, the kind of decision people make just before the ground disappears. For 2 days, nothing major happened. Then I found the corridor. I was inspecting a power distribution panel behind Lab 2. One of the voltage monitors had been drifting, and I wanted eyes on the physical connectors before I blamed the sensor. I opened the access hatch, anchored my boots, and spent a while with my head and shoulders inside the wall, flashlight clipped to my collar. When I backed out, there was a passage to my left that hadn't been there when I went in. It was short, maybe 10 feet, with 2 storage lockers and a narrow equipment recess at the end. Clean white panels, handholds, soft lighting, completely ordinary. That was what made it obscene. Not slimy, not dark, not alive, just useful. I stayed very still. The mind tries to protect itself by offering bad explanations quickly. I'd missed it. I was turned around. It had always been there. Stress, sleep, and angle, lighting. I photographed the passage. Then I pulled up the station schematic. The schematic showed the passage. Auxiliary corridor Lab 3 access. A small maintenance request flashed at the top of the queue. Airflow imbalance Lab 3 auxiliary corridor. I laughed once, quietly. Not because it was funny. From the comm bay, Sophia called, "You okay?" I looked down the passage. "Yes," I said. The lie sounded normal, and that scared me more than anything had so far. I fixed the airflow imbalance. There was a loose duct collar in the equipment recess, exactly where the diagnostic said it would be. The work took 12 minutes. I photographed the loose collar, the reseated clamp, the final pressure reading. My hands moved correctly. My notes were clean. Afterward, I floated in that new corridor and touched the wall. It was real. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. Real in the way maintenance people mean real. It had seams, fasteners, manufacturing marks, a faint scuff near a handhold, dust collected behind the locker hinge. When I removed an access cover, there were wires behind it, labeled and bundled. with serial numbers that matched the station database. Reality had not made a mistake. It had made an addition. Maya believed me after that. Not fully. No one fully believes something like that all at once. But she stood in the auxiliary corridor with me, one hand on the wall, and said nothing for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "I have memory of this." I looked at her. "I can remember walking through here last week," she said. Her face had gone pale in the station lighting. "I can remember telling Lucas not to store sample packs in this locker." "But you also remember not having it?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." There is no expression for that, for remembering two versions of the same ordinary hallway. Human language is full of words for grief and anger and love, but almost nothing for finding a new memory inside yourself, like someone else's hand in your pocket. We brought in Sophia next. She was skeptical for approximately 4 minutes. Then she pulled network logs and found routing paths through nodes that had not existed in her archive topology. Her mouth went flat in a way I recognized. "Oh," she said. Maya asked, "Oh, what?" "Oh, I hate this." The three of us started working quietly. Evelyn noticed, of course. Commanders notice secrets because secrets change the air. She called us into the galley after Owen and Lucas had gone to the lab. Maya laid it out. Carefully, clinically. No hysteria. No speculation beyond evidence. Evelyn listened. When Maya finished, Evelyn looked at me. "Show me your offline archive." I did. She scrolled through photos, logs, inventory comparisons. Her face did not change, but one thumb rubbed slowly against the side of the tablet. Then she said, "Who else knows?" "Sophia," Maya said, "Daniel, me." "And Flight?" I shook my head. Evelyn nodded once. "Then Flight is about to know." The call with Helen Ross remains one of the most unpleasant conversations of my life because she did not sound surprised. Evelyn summarized the anomalies. Lab 3. Ruiz. The corridor. Inconsistent records. Crew memory divergence. There was the usual delay. Helen's voice returned smooth as poured cream. "Commander Shaw, we recommend documenting all observations in the approved anomaly reporting system and continuing mission operations." Evelyn stared at the comm panel. "Helen," she said, "I am reporting unauthorized structural configuration changes aboard an occupied orbital platform." "Understood. Do you have an explanation?" "We are reviewing all available telemetry." "That is not an answer." "No," Helen said gently. "It is not." Sophia mouthed something unkind. Evelyn's voice hardened. "Is the crew in danger?" Another delay. All human spaceflight carries inherent risk. I remember Lucas looking up from his food pouch then. Even he understood the shape of that answer. Owen, quiet as ever, said, "Helen, have previous crews reported anything like this?" The delay felt longer. "I'm not cleared to discuss prior mission medical or operational records." Maya's eyes met mine. That was the moment the mission changed. Not officially. Officially, we were still manufacturing pharmaceutical compounds and performing scheduled experiments. Unofficially, every person aboard Halcyon started watching the station watch us back. Lucas resisted the longest. He wasn't stupid. He just needed the world to remain generous. He kept offering explanations with the persistence of a man patching holes in a boat while pretending not to see the water. Database corruption, stress contamination, carbon dioxide effects, faulty memory, delayed upload conflicts. Then he found a bioreactor cartridge labeled with Damian Ruiz's initials and sat in the lab for nearly an hour without speaking. Owen kept photographing Earth, more often than before. Morning, evening. Whenever he had a spare minute, he drifted to the observation glass and took another picture of the planet below. Cloud systems, deserts, coastlines, city lights. He said it helped him remember there was a whole world underneath us agreeing on things. That was the closest any of us came to naming the theory before we found the files. The next change involved the crew portrait. Every mission has one. Smiling faces in matching flight shirts, taken before launch when everyone is still rested, and gravity is still holding their organs politely in place. Ours was mounted in the galley on a display loop with the company logo and mission patch. 6 people: Evelyn, Maya, Lucas, Sophia, Owen, me. Then one morning there were 7. Damien stood between Sophia and me. He was ordinary. That was the violation. I think some part of me expected blur, distortion, something mercifully wrong. Instead, he looked like a person you might stand behind at a pharmacy. Dark hair, trim beard, medium build, brown eyes, slight smile like he wasn't sure how much teeth the photographer wanted. Sophia saw it first. She did not scream. She reached out and turned off the display. Then she said, "No." Maya pulled up the archived image. 7 people. I pulled up my offline copy. 7 people. I checked a printed crew manifest in the emergency binder. 7 names. Damian Ruiz, maintenance engineer. My job. Not assistant, not specialist. Maintenance engineer. I read the line until the words became shapes. Evelyn took the binder from me and looked through the staffing pages. Her jaw tightened. "We launched with 6, she said. Lucas whispered, "Did we?" Nobody answered him. That was how it spread. Not by convincing us of one new fact, but by making old facts lonely. 6 began to feel less like truth and more like stubbornness. The station was not arguing, it simply presented a world where Damien belonged, and every system supported it. His employment history appeared in corporate files: training certifications, medical clearance, emergency contact, performance reviews, a commendation from a previous mission. There were emails from him. Short practical notes. Filter cartridges moved to locker C. Recommend replacing pump seal before next cycle. Coffee supply low again. Not naming names. Sophia read that one and said, very softly, "He writes like you." I wanted to be angry at her. I wasn't, because he did. The final stage began when we started remembering him, not all at once. A flash first, a borrowed fragment. I would pass the equipment bay and get the faint impression of someone humming off-key near the tool locker. Maya remembered Damien complaining about treadmill straps. Lucas remembered him liking cinnamon gum. Sophia remembered beating him at cards, although we had no cards aboard Halcyon. I fought those memories like contamination. Every time one surfaced, I wrote it down. Memory intrusion. Damien and Gally laughing at Sophia's joke. No original event. Emotional tone familiar. Reject. Memory intrusion. Damien assisting with condenser repair. Hands visible only. No original event. Reject. Memory intrusion. Damien saying, "Don't trust the server copy." Strong emotional resonance. Reject. That last one bothered me because it sounded like advice I would give. We found the classified archive during a communications hardware inspection. I say found, but that makes it sound like luck. It wasn't luck. Sophia noticed bandwidth allocation to a hidden partition in the ground sync buffer. I pulled the physical access panel because the heat signature was wrong. Maya kept watch. Evelyn authorized the breach with the exhausted formality of a commander deciding which rule mattered least. The partition contained previous mission records, not summaries, not sanitized reports, raw logs, video transcripts, medical notes, engineering anomalies, crew interviews, private correspondence between corporate science directors and flight. Halcyon had not discovered the phenomenon during our mission. They had been studying it for years. The first references were almost dismissive. Minor mass variance, inventory discrepancies, crew disagreement regarding storage layout, then stranger entries. A sleep cabin recalled by 3 crew members but absent from launch configuration. A radiation shelter that appeared in evacuation procedures before it appeared in the station. Mission patches changing between uploads. One crew returning with incompatible memories of who had commanded them. And Damien? At first he was a joke. A missing tool was blamed on Damien. A completed repair with no assigned technician was credited to Damien. Someone wrote, "Damien handled it," in a log comment. Another crew picked up the name. Then another. Over multiple missions, Damien became a tradition. Then a placeholder. Then an unofficial role. Then records began accommodating him. One corporate memo described him as a persistent consensus artifact. Another called him the first stable emergent personnel construct. I read that phrase several times. Personnel construct. Not ghost, not hallucination. A job title that had taught reality to grow a person around it. The deeper files contained the theory. I won't pretend I understood all of it. There were references to observer density, cognitive convergence, shared environmental expectation, quantum decoherence analogies that made Lucas mutter angrily even while terrified. But the plain language summary was simple enough. Reality appeared to be less stable in isolated orbital environments. Not because of microgravity, not because of radiation, because there were fewer people there to agree on what was true. On Earth, billions of minds reinforced the same general world every moment. Not consciously, not magically, just by existing inside it together. A kind of mass consensus so large and constant that reality stayed locked in place. On Halcyon, there were only a handful of us, and in that small, sealed world, expectation had leverage. Shared assumptions became easier to satisfy. Mistakes became easier to correct retroactively. Jokes repeated across missions became traditions. Traditions became records. Records became architecture. Architecture became memory. The corporation had not caused it. That almost made it worse. They found a crack in the world and built a laboratory around it. One memo from a senior executive said the phenomenon represented the most significant discovery in the history of human cognition, material science, and applied ontology. Applied ontology? I remember laughing at that until Maya took the tablet from my hand. Owen was the one who asked the question we had all avoided. What happens to a crew when they stop agreeing? No one answered. Then Sophia opened the final mission report from 2 crews before ours. The video would not play, but the transcript loaded. It began normally. Crew members reporting inconsistent memories, structural changes, newly manifested storage compartments, then disagreement. Not argument, something more fundamental. One crew member insisted the station had always had 2 laboratories, another insisted 4. One remembered Earth below them as blue and white. Another described visible land masses that didn't match any map. The commander began using names that belonged to no one aboard. The last line of the transcript was from Flight Director Helen Ross. Please continue documenting all observations. I looked up from the tablet. She knew, I said. Evelyn's face was unreadable. Yes. Lucas pushed away from the wall with too much force and caught himself against the table. We need to leave. Nobody disagreed. The return vehicle was docked and functional. Emergency departure was possible if command authorized, or if the crew initiated evacuation under medical or structural risk. Evelyn chose structural risk. Helen tried to talk her down. Of course she did. Commander, premature departure may compromise mission integrity. Evelyn's voice was steady. Mission integrity is no longer my priority. Evelyn listened carefully. The safest course is continued observation until we understand the parameters. You mean until you do? A pause. Helen said, "This discovery will change everything." Evelyn looked at the 6 of us, then at the crew portrait showing 7. It already has. Preparing to leave a station is normally disciplined chaos. Checklists, suit inspections, data transfers, sample preservation, power down sequences. You do not run from orbit. You negotiate with physics while afraid. I moved through my tasks with a strange calm. secure life support, configure ventilation standby, shut non-essential pumps, photograph final panel states, copy offline logs to physical drives. At Damien's cabin, I stopped. The hatch was closed. No one had ever gone in. No one admitted that out loud. I opened it. Inside was a sleep cabin like mine. Restraint bag, personal tablet, hygiene kit, a strip of Velcro holding 3 coffee packets. On the wall, a photograph had been taped beside the light. It showed the crew in the galley. All 7 of us. Damien had one arm hooked casually through a restraint loop. Sophia was laughing at something. Lucas had his eyes half closed. Owen held a coffee bulb. Maya looked toward the camera. Evelyn was smiling faintly. And I was looking at Damien. Not near him, not past him, at him. With the tired, familiar annoyance of a man listening to a coworker say something stupid for the 100th time. I took the photograph. I still have it. Some days there are 6 people in it, some days 7. Re-entry was rough, but re-entry is supposed to be rough. The capsule shook like machinery with a grudge. Heat wrapped around us. Gravity returned as an accusation. When we hit ocean, Lucas started crying. Sophia laughed until she cried too. Maya closed her eyes and kept one hand around my wrist. Recovery crews opened the hatch. Earth air came in, heavy, wet, full of salt and fuel and people. For a while, I believed that was enough. The company quarantined us under medical observation. They used softer words, but that's what it was. We were debriefed separately, asked about stress, memory, interpersonal conflict, hallucinations, documentation. I lied selectively. So did everyone else, I think. Not to protect the company, to protect the shape of our own lives. After several weeks, they released us under non-disclosure agreements thick enough to have their own gravity. The public statement said our mission ended early due to a non-critical systems issue. The pharmaceutical samples were recovered. The company stock dipped, then rose higher than before after they announced promising preliminary results. People like miracles better when they come with quarterly guidance. I went home. For months, nothing changed. That is not true, actually. Everything changed, but only in normal ways. I slept badly. I hated elevators. I checked room counts in every building I entered. I photographed my apartment each morning like a crime scene. I printed records, bank statements, medical forms, old emails, childhood pictures, proof of a life. The world held. Every morning the same kitchen, same scar on my left thumb, same neighbor arguing with his dog in the hallway, same bills, same weather reports, same crowded sidewalks full of people unknowingly keeping the universe nailed down. I began to recover. Not fully. Fully is a word people use when they want survivors to become more convenient. But I worked, I ate, I called Sophia sometimes, Maya too. Evelyn never said much, but she always answered. Lucas left the industry. Owen sent photos of Earth he had taken from Halcyon, one every few weeks, like postcards from a place we had escaped. None of us mentioned Damien on calls. Then, in late autumn, I went to renew my driver's license. The woman at the counter was friendly in the tired way government employees become friendly when they have decided not to let the line kill them. She checked my documents, typed something, frowned at her screen, and said, "You need to update your emergency contact." I said, "It should be my brother." She shook her head. "We have your daughter listed." I smiled politely. "I don't have a daughter." She looked at me, then back at the screen. "Well," she said with a small laugh, "the system thinks you do." I did not move. She read the name. Emily Mercer. The office noise around me seemed to flatten. Printers, coughing, a baby fussing 2 counters over, someone complaining about forms, all of it ordinary, all of it real. I told her there was an error. She asked if I wanted to correct it. I said yes. She asked for updated contact information. I gave her my brother's name again. She typed. Then she paused. "That's strange." I waited. She said it changed back. I left without renewing the license. Outside, the city was moving the way cities move, when they do not care whether you have been ruined. Buses sighing at curbs, steam lifting from a grate, people stepping around me with practiced irritation. I reached for my phone to call Maya. My hand brushed my wallet. There was something inside the billfold, tucked behind my insurance card. A school photograph. A teenage girl with dark hair and a careful smile stood against a blue-gray background. She looked maybe 15, maybe 16. There was something about her eyes that made my chest hurt before I understood why. On the back, in purple ink, someone had written, "Love you, Dad." The edges of the photo were soft with wear. Not new, not planted that morning. Handled, carried, looked at over and over by a version of me who knew exactly who she was. I stood on the sidewalk with the photograph in my hand while thousands of people moved around me, each one carrying their own little vote for the world. And for the first time since Halcyon, I wondered how many people it takes to make something true. Then I wondered how many it takes to change it. I turned the photograph over again. Her smile stayed. I had no memory of her at all. Some stories are easier to tell than to explain. If you enjoyed my story, I'd be grateful if you subscribed. Thanks for listening.